A little bit fresher, especially towards the north, but still in the teens in many places, so not a cold night by any stretch of the imagination. And we start Thursday with very mixed weather across the country. Some areas seeing heavy rain. The heaviest rain, most likely northern England into parts of Wales, and then that will sink south through the day. Hail and thunder possible anywhere across England and Wales. And with these heavy showers, it's certainly going to be something we've not experienced a great deal of during the summer so far. Also, temperatures down a touch on today, so a notably cooler feel. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M27 westbound is closed at Junction 2 in Romsey. The M5 southbound has delays following a reported collision at Junction 23 in Bridgewater North. The A36 is closed after the A30. The M1 is closed between junctions 9 and 11A in Luton. In Scotland, the M80 southbound has 2 lanes restricted on the M8 slip and main carriageway. Across Wales, the M4 eastbound at J33 Capel Llanilton is congested. And on the trains, Greater Anglia services are facing major disruption between Shenfield and Southend Victoria. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
Practice Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now tuning in to GB News.
They shape our programmes, we try and incorporate them in our shows as much as we can.
Our audience are really interactive.
Our listeners, our viewers, they're growing.
And that's because they tell their friends and family about what we're doing here at GB News.
It feels like the depth of that connection has strengthened as well.
Thank you so much for speaking to us on GB News.
Come and say hello to everybody that's here from GB News.
It's been an exceptional event.
We've come a long way here now.
Thank you, GB News!
What's so unique about GB News viewers is that they really, really love our country.
And they talk about us so proudly.
We're on a journey together.
We are here for all of Britain. We believe in this country, we believe in its people, and we believe in all of the communities who live here.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning to you. It is 9:30 on Wednesday, the 19th of August. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, is there a great green rip-off? The Conservatives claim that households could save about £540 a year after 2030 if net zero regulations are scrapped.
This might get you going. The Lib Dem leader, Red Davey, wants Britain to join the European Union's Migration and Asylum Pact so that Britain can legally return migrants to their first EU port of entry. But of course, there is a catch.
And breaking news, in a blow for the Prime Minister, inflation has gone up to 2.9%, driven by a rise in energy bills.
Quite difficult diagnosis. Queen Camilla speaks out about the King's determination to carry out royal duties while battling cancer.
I remember coming to see our Maggie's just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult.
Diana's brother tells all. Earl Spencer will break his silence on Princess Diana in a new book, saying that it will include untold details about his sister's life.
Now, I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country.
Beds for Christmas. This morning, Andy Burnham vows to get everyone sleeping rough inside by December the 25th. But where will they go?
And a Meta showdown. The tech giant behind Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp faces a courtroom battle over allegations that it ignored dangers to children. Rob Bonta is the Attorney General of California.
Proud to co-lead this national fight to demand accountability and to demand justice. This is about our children, the next generation, our kids. They deserve to be safe.
Miriam, I think this court case ongoing in America, 29 different states are involved. They've embraced the parents of children who died accessing social media. Many of the parents gave very emotional statements saying they didn't die naturally, they were effectively killed by social media, and what they're arguing is that Meta willfully programmed the algorithm to hook children young, to make them addicted. That is a devastating charge if true.
Absolutely. And it does throw into question what these social media companies are up to. How have they been given free rein for so long? And certainly when they were first invented, lots of people argued they should be treated like publishers.
Absolutely right.
Like the newspapers are. And, the Times newspaper can't publish horrific videos of people being murdered and worse, and yet somehow these social media companies argued that they're not publishers, they're just platforms, it's not their responsibility, and so they've got away with all this. But I suppose the question is, can the genie be put back in the bottle? Can it be rolled back? What can be done?
Well, it's the threat of money, and nothing will hurt Mark Zuckerberg more than losing his money. There's talk that fines could be up to £1 trillion, which is the entire market capitalisation of his company.
That's right.
That
is a big penalty.
And I think these internet companies have stolen so many of our young people's childhoods.
Right.
Unforgivable.
And I think the fact that it is a product that's so clearly addictive and harmful to children, if it had been a drug, a pharmaceutical company that had made a drug and it's been put on the market and suddenly there are all these adverse effects, they would have taken it off the market and then investigated what's happening, but that hasn't happened with tech.
You put cigarettes out of the way of children under the age of. We've got to have that conversation in this country about getting some of this dark web out of the way of children.
And I think
who are under the age of
increasingly
16.
people agree that that's what should happen, but the question is, how do you do it, and how do you do it without impacting on adult freedom? It's not an easy solution.
We'll be talking about that more in the programme this morning. We'd love to know, as ever, what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories at 9:30. The Queen has spoken publicly for the first time about the difficult emotional experience of having to keep the King's cancer diagnosis a secret. In a new film made in collaboration between Buckingham Palace and Maggie's cancer charity to mark its 30th anniversary, Queen Camilla reveals she was longing to let it out during a visit to one of their cancer support centres in January 2024, just days before the King's diagnosis was officially disclosed. Andy Burnham has pledged to work to get everyone in for Christmas as he continues to build on his vow to end rough sleeping. The Prime Minister is attempting a repeat of efforts during the COVID pandemic when the Everyone In scheme resulted in thousands of rough sleepers across England being taken in off the streets. The UK's inflation rate rose to 2.9% in the year to July, up from 2.6% the month before. Widely expected by economists, the increase was driven by the largest rise in gas prices for almost 4 years, according to the Office for National Statistics. 3 members of the same family have died after getting into difficulty in the water off the Sussex coast. Another was taken to hospital in a critical condition. Those are your headlines for now. More at 10 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, good morning and welcome to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Stop the boats, smash the gangs. Remember all those talk from politicians, slogans from the Tories, Labour and Reform. Bribe the French, yeah, send in the Royal Navy to tackle illegal migration. Well,
today, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey, he thinks he might have the answer. Hold your criticism, Andrew. You never know. He might have come up with a good idea. Well, he's calling for the UK to join the EU's Migration and Asylum Pact, which would give the UK new powers to return small boat arrivals to the first EU country they entered.
But, of course, the catch is we then have to take a proportionate number of migrants here. I don't know where they come from. And Sir Ed Davey hasn't told us how many that will be. He says vaguely it will be fewer than are crossing the channel illegally. How does he know?
Well, exactly. Well, someone who can hopefully tell us a little bit more about this and the pros and cons is the former Home Office Minister, Tom Pursglove, and friend of the show. Tom, thank you so much for coming into the studio this morning. Now, on the face of it, this sounds like it could be a good idea. The ability to return small boat migrants to the country in the EU where they first arrived would help us out a lot. What's the catch?
I've got to say that I see this really as boring, EU-loving, Lib Demery, completely naive, coming from people who used to tell me consistently that these people who arrive in our country illegally ought to be able to claim asylum and they ought to have the right to stay in our country. So those instincts underpin the policy that they're coming forward with today, as well as a reliance on the Dublin regulation that previously existed and which, if you do the analysis on it, and all the graphs prove this, if you look at them, that it was very, very small numbers of migrants in question, but also we were often a net recipient in
Tom,
that arrangement.
I thought you'd mentioned the Dublin regulation. This was the regulation by which we could return migrants. In 2019, in 2018, we sent back 209. 2019, 263. In 2020, 105. Thousands came the other way.
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
I mean, these are tiny numbers. Yeah. We were worse off on the back of that arrangement.
Yeah.
And when you look at the scale of the challenge that we have in the Channel, those numbers just pale into insignificance. And so that's what we're dealing with. That's the sort of thinking behind the policy that they've come forward with today. And that's before you get into all of the challenges around, for example, what would the cost be? How many migrants would we be being expected to take? And it wouldn't necessarily just be legal migrants, who they would say, you know, people perhaps who should have a right to be able to claim asylum somewhere in the EU or beyond to be in safety, but also illegal migrants. And people here feel really strongly, quite rightly, that none of these people should be able to stay in the UK. So
that's my view.
This would be a very one-sided agreement.
They're coming here illegally. They're breaking the law. They should be processed and out.
Exactly.
Now, of course, some of our viewers might think, well, we have so many illegal migrants in this country. We've got 97,000 asylum seekers in the system. You know, if we could reduce that number by offloading to the EU, well, wouldn't that be helpful? But most of other EU countries also have this problem. We're actually quite far down the list in terms of the number of asylum seekers per head. This could backfire massively.
So part of the policy is about trying to effectively push back to the entry points into the EU migrants. So, if, you know, rather than stopping people being able to get to France, being able to more quickly, in their journey across Europe, return them back to where they came at that point of entry. The problem with that is that we know that the Mediterranean area is deluged by these illegal migrants coming. So very quickly, the Italians and the Greeks and the like will just slam the emergency brake on. So I don't see how that particular part of the policy works. But also, if you look at it from a UK point of view, the sensible approach to take to this is to sit back, let them do this, and if it works, we would benefit from it anyway, because if it means that migrants who get to France are then removed back, back towards that point of entry, then that would help us
Why do
anyway.
we need to bother?
And surely you'd want to test this.
Also, Tom, we'd have to pay to enter this scheme.
Yes.
How much is it going to cost? Ed Davey hasn't told us.
No, it's back of an envelope policy, isn't it? And
yeah.
The surefire way of resolving this, the only way you can have confidence in dealing with this, is to reduce the moving parts, reduce the numbers of things that can go wrong in this process. We've proven now to destruction that relying upon EU countries to tackle this problem is completely inadequate. It isn't going to work. And I remember, actually, probably my first day in the Home Office when I was appointed the first time round, being told in my briefings that people will come to you and say, and in debates they'll say to you, that the Dublin regulation is the great panacea, it's going to solve all of our problems, and it's terrible that Brexit got rid of it. Completely untrue for the reasons we touched on.
Yeah.
Tiny, tiny numbers, net recipient in many of the years in question, and just completely inadequate to the scale of the problem.
One potential advantage of this scheme, though, would be access to the database within the EU system that shows who's coming into the EU, who's coming to Europe, what their biometric details are. We lost that in Brexit. Do you think there's any way to be part of that scheme again without joining the whole rest of the arrangement?
So during my time, my understanding was that we continue to have fairly good cooperation with our neighbours in relation to being able to carry out checks that are important for national security reasons in particular. But we should always seek to try and improve that, and that is mutually beneficial, because if you've got organised crime on both sides of the channel and national security risks, it's in the interests of both governments to want to know about that, to be able to try and do something about it. So I would hope that the EU isn't taking a childish approach to that. That is something that we have always been fair and reasonable about. By the way, we also offered the EU, as part of the Brexit negotiations, a comprehensive returns arrangement. They didn't want to proceed with that. So
Why didn't they?
Because of the very reasons that we're talking about. It just isn't in their interest.
No,
I think
quite.
it's really hard to sell to your domestic audience. If you've got the ability to be able to move illegal migrants off and they become somebody else's problem, it's rather attractive politically to them, isn't it?
I don't think also the sort of broader macro look here from Ed Davey, he's an EU fanatic.
Yes.
This is about getting back into the EU, back under the aegis
back in the
of
orbit.
Exactly that, don't you think?
Totally.
And I just think, I mean, I can just feel people watching, holding their hands and go, oh, no,
I judge them
left.
against by their consistent actions on
Yes.
this. Everything that they talk about and everything they've done for the last decade has all been with that kind of rejoiner ethos at the core. That's what their policy's about. This is all about trying to pull us back into that EU orbit. And I just don't think, for the reasons we've talked about, that this is in our national interest to do this. We've got to take this into our own hands, our own destiny, and detain and remove individuals. And that means having the willingness to change our laws, but also a third country like Rwanda. And it's interesting, of course, that the EU, who sort of derided politicians like myself, saying that it was cruel and inhumane and morally unjust to say that we ought to have a Rwanda-type policy, and now looking at returns hubs to be able to do something very similar.
Yeah, and other countries as well. In Europe, this doesn't necessarily suit them. I mean, you think about countries like Hungary, for example, who themselves have solved their illegal migration problem by building a border fence and cut down the number of asylum seekers to almost zero. Well, now they're part of this pact. They will have to take asylum seekers that the EU gives them, despite the fact that they've spent millions of their own money solving the problem. It's deeply unfair.
And, of course, daft domestic policies in certain EU countries. Look at Spain, what happened a few weeks ago.
Encourage the problem.
The Supreme Court ruling around being able to bounce people back across outside of the EU. They've made the journey via water into places like Ceuta. But also the amnesty policy that sends all the wrong signals, all the wrong messages, and just encourages more people to come to Europe.
And then the rest of the EU has to pay for it.
And then the rest of the EU has to step in and pay for sort of socialist fantasy principles.
Yeah. Well, I think you've summed up the EU quite well there.
It's great fun.
I'm sorry, the moment I heard it was, A, Ed Davey was back here, and secondly, it was EU. I thought, no.
Your prejudices were...
Well, I'm sorry. We left the European Union. They're rubbish. They're no good. They won't be able to sort it out.
No. And of course,
faith in them.
The biggest problem, Tom, is if we did join it, even if it benefited us in the short term, it would tie the hands of a future government,
of course it
which
would.
Then could not leave the ECHR, deport people to Rwanda, whatever it is. We've lost sovereignty by that point.
Exactly. And they would, we would have to dance to their tune.
Yeah.
They would decide what the cost was, because they would hold the cards. They would also decide what number of illegal migrants you would have to settle as part of this, as well as legal migrants.
There'd be all sorts of binding contracts which we do not want to sign up to. Well done, Tom.
Take back control. Thanks, Tom. Great to see you as always. Well, still ahead on Britain's Newsroom, the Conservatives claim that they could save you £540 a year on your energy bill.
Up next, the Queen speaks out on having to keep stum about the King's cancer diagnosis.
I remember coming to see our maggots just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult.
And Earl Spencer is trying to cash in on his late sister, Princess Diana.
Not for the first time. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for those European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
It's not just the UK where we've seen a change in the weather this week, certainly much cooler across northern and central Europe, with some very lively thunderstorms in places. Now, there are some thunderstorms around on Thursday for eastern parts of Spain into the south of Iberia, for example. But the liveliest downpours and thunderstorms most likely northern Italy into the Alps, and especially around the Italian lakes, where there could be some very significant rain right there through this week and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Joining us now is Head of Advocacy at Big Brother Watch, Jack Colson. Jack, interested to know your view on this. You know, why shouldn't I be able to wear my Meta glasses around?
Well, certainly there are times and places where Meta glasses might be of use, particularly for those with visual impairments. The technology really could be a breakthrough, but we see these as the tip of an iceberg. Meta's glasses have already been potentially linked to facial recognition technology, which really would be a stalker's charter. And we are operating in an environment where perpetrators of harassment feel safe to use this technology, when really it's the public who ought to feel safe. So the government ultimately are going to have to explore restrictions on this kind of technology, and we're seeing civil society push back.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I do think it's worrying that young people, I mean, are they I think they are more risk averse.
Yes.
I think they are scared of getting into personal space. I think you're right, there are issues about consent and everything else. But how sad that people say that it's been a year since they've been kissed. What is life for if you're not having a little kiss every now and again?
Yeah, the death of the kiss.
Apparently, much younger people now haven't had a good snog in over 12 months on average, the people that have been interviewed. But I would hazard a guess that that's because people are frightened. Men don't know when they can approach women anymore. Men can think 1 or 2 steps ahead on the same board, whereas a woman will think about 18 steps. So
I think you're overthinking it.
If a man takes you to Paris for the weekend, a woman will come back disappointed that they haven't proposed to them, whereas a man thinks they've done a really great thing.
Why do men always think you're going to be proposed to in Paris? That you expect that. We don't expect that. Just take us to Paris.
The People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I'm thrilled to say now I'm joined by another World War II veteran.
In my judgment, the Mosquito was a better aircraft because it's got 2 Spitfire engines.
And you flew it all over Europe. You told me that you had a particularly memorable flight near Berlin. What happened there?
A shell came up underneath, it lifted up the aircraft and it interfered for a brief period with the fuel supply. I didn't know. All I knew was I'd got the propellers were windmilling around and we hadn't any power, and eventually the power came on again, and I leaned across to Doug, my navigator. He was a Canadian, a wonderful bloke. And I said to him, you weren't frightened, were you, Doug? And he said, no, I wasn't frightened, I was bloody terrified.
GB News.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10 minutes to 10.
The Queen has spoken for the first time about the emotional strain of keeping quiet about the King's cancer diagnosis. She had to keep it from the public before it was announced to the world. Here's the Queen.
I remember coming to see our Maggies just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult. I almost said something, but, you know, I felt that it wasn't the time to say it. Looked at everybody who was suffering and all the relations, and I think it made me realise even more how important these places were.
Well, our GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker joins us now. Cameron, good morning. Unusual revelation from the Queen here. The royal family aren't normally so open about their emotions and kind of emotional struggle. What do you think the Queen is trying to do here?
Well, I think she was trying to raise awareness and perhaps break some of the stigmas, because what this interview has coincided with is new research from Maggie's Cancer Charity. It's been going for 30 years. Queen's been president since 2008. Is that since the King publicly disclosed that he had cancer, the number of men who've been seeking support from Maggie's across the country has actually gone up by around 12%. So there's 24 Maggie's cancer centres around the country in major hospitals, and it's about trying to match a holistic approach to cancer care with, of course, the clinical and medical interventions necessary. So more kind of the emotional well-being of both the patients themselves, but also their families. And that is what Queen Camilla, I think, was trying to get at here, because she, of course, was saying, you know, I knew when I was visiting a Maggie Centre that the King had cancer, but I couldn't say, because clearly, as it turned out to be a major global story. And, you know, just 5 days later, Buckingham Palace announced the King had been diagnosed with cancer. But what she also talked about was how the King copes with it, and that was by keeping calm and carrying on and continuing with full public duties. He only took 12 weeks out of public duties before he got back on there, then did a big tour to Australia and Samoa. And of course, even this year, like going to the United States and seeing President Trump and managing somehow to persuade President Trump to relax whiskey tariffs, bringing millions to the economy, according to Trump. So yeah, that's what I think what the Queen was getting at.
I mean, he's like his mother, isn't he, Cameron? He's a trooper.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And he wasn't going to let a disease get in the way of what he wanted to do. He waited so long to be king. He was the longest serving heir apparent. And of course, he wants to continue with his public duties, as he is so right now. I mean, I was with him yesterday at Balmoral Castle, where he was receiving his ceremonial welcome. But I was speaking to Andrew Bowie, the Shadow Energy Secretary, whose constituency covers Balmoral, and he was telling me, look, you know, the King has done a lot of unsung work over the last couple of weeks, visiting local businesses, supporting local businesses as well, and local communities in the local Scottish area of Aberdeenshire, without fanfare, without press releases, and just doing what he wants to do, which is support, you know, local people and the people of this country. So cancer's really at the back of his mind. There's been no update of his diagnosis. What we do know, of course, according to royal sources, is that it's going into in a positive direction. And of course, at the end of last December, he said it was a blessing that he could reduce the frequency of his cancer treatment.
Cameron, just briefly, I imagine nobody in the senior echelons of the royal family are very happy that Lord Spencer is going to write a book about his sister, late sister Diana, Princess of Wales, telling us stories we don't know, including in the aftermath of her death, when there was a lot of strains within the royal family about how to respond.
Yeah, certainly going to be ruffling a few royal feathers. Kensington Palace not commenting whether Prince William was asked for his blessing before his uncle wrote the book on Diana, Princess of Wales, but it is going to cover the week of her death, and we know how difficult that was for the royal family.
Well, Cameron, thank you very much for that report. I'm sure we'll speak to you again later.
I wonder if the Earl Spencer is hard up. Sold £60 million worth of land last year.
Yeah, maybe he needs the money. Well,
he's had 3 wives.
We all need the money.
Wife number 4.
Indeed. Inflation has risen this morning. Bad news, Prime Minister. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show.
Bad news for us.
On GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office. A very different feel across the UK compared with summer so far. Some bright spells, yes, but also frequent heavy showers, and not just for northern parts of the UK. Some other areas across England and Wales where we desperately need rain have had a splash of rain overnight, not much, and there'll be further showers through the day today. So, yeah, with a cooler feel as well. It's a marked contrast compared with summer so far. But the most frequent showers always across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England, where there'll be some hail and thunder, and it will feel notably cool with a brisk breeze. Further south, low to mid-20s in any sunny spells. There will be some fleeting showers. Now, these are going to be very hit and miss. Some places will mostly avoid them and stay dry with sunny spells. Other areas will get a brief shower or two. Not enough to help the current situation, but better than nothing. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, plastered with showers, those showers pushing south into northern parts of England. The far north of Scotland, fewer showers. They're not quite as lively here, with cooler air all in all for Shetland as well as Orkney. Now, the showers in the northwest do tend to trickle southwards on Wednesday night into Thursday. As a result, I think we're likely to see more showers for England and Wales by the start of Thursday compared with much of today. Temperatures overnight a little bit fresher, especially towards the north, but still in the teens in many places, so not a cold night by any stretch of the imagination. And we start Thursday with very mixed weather across the country. Some areas seeing heavy rain. The heaviest rain, most likely northern England into parts of Wales, and then that will sink south through the day. Hail and thunder possible anywhere across England and Wales. And with these heavy showers, it's certainly going to be something we've not experienced a great deal of during the summer so far. Also, temperatures down a touch on today, so a notably cooler feel. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M27 westbound is closed between junctions 7 and 5 by Southampton Airport. The A36 is closed after the A360. The M1 is closed between junctions 9 and 11A in Luton. The M6 southbound is affected by an obstruction between junctions 6 and 5 in Birmingham East. The M62 westbound is closed between junctions 23 and 22 in Saddleworth. In Scotland, the M8 westbound has queuing and lane restrictions at junction 13 in between the slips. And on the trains, Greater Anglia has major disruption between Shenfield and Southend Victoria, while East Midlands Railway has a temporary reduced timetable on some services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win over £65,000 in prizes. You could be our latest Great British Giveaway winner. First of all, we want to give you £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also receive a fine gold bar worth over £5,000.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday the 19th of August. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
The Great Green Rip-Off. Well, that's what the Tories say. They say they've got a report which shows how they could save us £540 a year per household if net zero regulations are scrapped. We're going to hear from the Shadow Energy... Forgive me, my language. Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho this hour, and Reform's Richard Tice joins us to take a contrary view.
Elsewhere, the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, wants the UK to join the EU's Migration and Asylum Pact so Britain can legally return migrants to their first EU port of entry.
Now, I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country.
And he's planning beds for Christmas. This morning, Andy Burnham says he will get everyone who's sleeping rough indoors by December the 25th. But we're asking, where will they go and where's the money?
And some breaking news this morning in a blow for the Prime Minister and all of us. In fact, inflation has gone up to 2.9% annually, driven by a rise in energy bills.
Quite difficult diagnosis. Queen Camilla speaks out about the King's determination to carry out royal duties while battling cancer.
I remember coming to see our Maggies just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult.
Well, is Diana's brother about to tell all? Earl Spencer will break his silence on Princess Diana in a new book, saying that it will include untold details about his sister's life. But I doubt the royal family will be looking forward to it.
And a big showdown with Meta. The tech giant behind Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp is facing a major courtroom battle in the United States over allegations it willfully created what's it called, that thing, Miriam?
Algorithms?
The algorithm to lure and trap children, effectively to almost hypnotise them. Rob Bonter is the Attorney General of California.
Proud to co-lead this national fight to demand accountability and to demand justice. This is about our children, the next generation, our kids. They deserve to be safe.
It was, look, this whole court case is about kids getting addicted to the social media sites, and that these companies did it deliberately. They knew what they were doing. It's a devastating charge.
Well, exactly, and what they're doing is selling children's attention, because the longer children are looking at these apps and the longer they're scrolling for, the more exposure to advertising they get, and therefore the more the advertisers pay Facebook, Instagram, whichever platform it is. So we're just selling our children's attention.
We've all seen it ourselves when you look at something online and then within seconds an ad flashes up because the algorithm has caught you.
I know.
It is extraordinary.
You look at one kitten video on Instagram and next day your whole feed is full of cats. Of course, it's not a problem when it's cats, but there's a lot of awful things out there that are really, really harmful for children.
And we're going to be having a discussion about net zero because Richard Tice from Reform is coming, because he's very sceptical about what he says is the Tories' plan to save £540 a year off our energy bills by getting rid of a lot of net zero targets. What does he call net zero? Stupid net zero.
Net stupid zero.
Net stupid zero. That's what he thinks.
I think that phrase has possibly had its day. But anyway, most people accept we're going to have to carry on using fossil fuels. We'll send your views, post your comments to gbnews.com/your say.
First, here's the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you and good morning. The top stories. Andy Burnham has pledged to work to get everyone in for Christmas as he continues to build on his vow to end rough sleeping. The Prime Minister is attempting a repeat of efforts during the COVID pandemic when the Everyone In scheme resulted in thousands of rough sleepers across England being taken in off the streets. The latest annual national statistics published by the government in February estimated there were 4,793 people sleeping rough on a single night in autumn last year in England. This was a new record high and the fourth annual increase in a row. The UK's inflation rate rose to 2.9% in the year to July, up from 2.6% the month before. Widely expected by economists, the increase was driven by the largest rise in gas prices for almost 4 years, according to the Office for National Statistics. Chancellor John Healey says Iran war inflation continues to impact prices here at home, but Britain's economy is resilient. Shadow Minister for Energy, Security and Net Zero, Andrew Bowie, spoke to GB News.
When Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, we left government with inflation going down. That was due to hard choices being taken by government, by the Chancellor then, Jeremy Hunt, and by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. It meant living within our means and not doing everything that maybe we wanted to do or would have made life a lot easier for us politically as a party, as a government. This government seemed to have learnt no lessons from that and are making unfunded commitments right, left and centre. And frankly, that building behind me having sat empty for 5 weeks now, we haven't even been able to scrutinise any of these announcements that the new Prime Minister has been making.
Breaking news in the last few minutes. Nick Kyrgios has been provisionally suspended after failing a doping test, the International Tennis Integrity Agency has announced. The controversial Australian player gave a sample at an ATP tournament in Mallorca in June that tested positive for cocaine. Cocaine is banned in competition, and former Wimbledon finalist Kyrgios has been provisionally suspended since the 4th of August. He's banned from playing and attending tournaments pending the outcome of a tribunal that will assess his case. Elsewhere, the Queen has spoken publicly for the first time about the difficult, emotional experience of having to keep the King's cancer diagnosis a secret. In a new film made in collaboration with the Buckingham Palace and Maggie's Cancer Charity to mark its 30th anniversary, Queen Camilla reveals she was longing to let it out during a visit to one of their cancer support centres in January 2024, just days before the King's diagnosis was officially disclosed.
I remember coming to see our Maggie's just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult. I almost said something, but I felt that it wasn't the time to say. Looked at everybody who was suffering and all the relations, and I think it made me realise even more how important these places were.
In other news, 3 members of the same family have died after getting into difficulty in the water off the Sussex coast. Another was taken to hospital in a critical condition. Ambulances, 2 helicopters and Coast Guards rushed to Shoreham by sea at 3 p.m. after reports of 4 people struggling in the water. Police said a man, a woman and a teenage girl died after being pulled from the sea. Elsewhere, Donald Trump has announced he's paused the imposition of 50% tariffs on more goods from Canada. The announcement came less than 2 hours before a levy on nearly $20 billion of Canadian imports was set to go in place. The two sides have disagreed on several issues, including US tariffs on autos and many Canadian provinces banning American liquor sales. Mr. Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke twice this week, and trade negotiators have been engaged in intense talks since July, after the US president threatened the new levy with a deadline of the 19th of August. Ukraine's recently ousted Defence Minister Mikhailo Fedorov called for a wartime elections in a bombshell address last night. He stated the nation faced a crisis of governance and spoke out on wartime corruption. Fedorov, who didn't mention President Zelensky by name in the video, was unexpectedly fired from his role as Defence Minister in late July, just 6 months after his appointment. Zelensky is yet to respond to the video from Fedorov, whose dismissal sparked protests across the country. And a NASA spacecraft has captured images of a new crater on the moon after a SpaceX rocket crashed into the surface. The abandoned Falcon made contact with the equivalent power of 3 tons of dynamite earlier this month, having been drifting through space for more than a year. NASA released before and after pictures today showing its impact in the greatest detail yet. Scientists said the crater appears to be around 60 foot across and 10 feet deep. Those are your latest headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello, good morning and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So the Shadow Energy Secretary, who's called Claire Coutinho, is going to make the case for ditching net zero in favour of what she says will be cheaper energy bills.
In a report by the think tank Onward, the report says that households could save £540 a year after 2030 if net zero regulations are scrapped, with a commitment to make energy as cheap as possible.
It's a long time to wait, isn't it, after 2030? Deputy Reform UK Richard Tice joins us now. Now, Richard Tice, good morning to you. This is a big moment for the Tories because Kemi Badenoch says she can't bear net zero. She doesn't use quite as disrespectful language as you do for net zero, Richard. What is wrong with this report by Onward? Why do you say it won't add up to the figures the Tories are saying?
Well, good morning to you both. And just to confirm, the net stupid zero slogan is just warming up, Miriam. It's not far from being past its day.
I think it needs some variations.
And literally, people are adopting it on the doorstep when I'm out campaigning. And I'm very proud that we've moved the Conservative Party from its previously disastrous position of promoting net zero towards actually getting rid of it. My issue about this report is that whilst it's a step in the right direction, it's still trying to sort of sit on the fence and be all things to all men and women. The simple reality is that if you keep pushing down more renewables, you have to have more backup for when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine.
But Richard, that isn't exactly what the report says. The report says that basically we have sunk these costs into renewables, but we should not be looking to expand the amount of renewables in our system. And frankly, some of them, we should accept that they're not producing what we need and we should switch to a firm power model, so more nuclear, essentially. That's a pragmatic compromise, isn't it?
My issue is we need a lot more gas. And yes, we need more nuclear. But as the current renewables expire, the wind turbines offshore, as they basically wear out, which they will, what mustn't happen is to replace them, because the cost of all of the renewables, which we were told would bring bills down, has actually increased bills. And just in the last couple of days, the government has unbelievably announced that it's going to subsidise more gas production because it suddenly realised that you need lots of backup. The confusion around all of this is total, and you cannot sit on the fence and have the best of both worlds. So what we're saying is actually you've got to be bolder, braver, and say, yes, more nuclear, of course, we're all up for that, but a lot more gas. We've got lots of gas in the North Sea and indeed onshore gas, and we should be using that and promoting it. And I'm optimistic, and I think that I will continue to bring the Conservative Party towards where they need to be in order to bring bills down. But as you said at the beginning, Andrew, actually, I don't want to wait that long. I want to get on with it. And I want to urge this government to change course dramatically, because just in the last couple of weeks, we've literally seen the risk of blackouts, the risk of a shortage of energy. Some days, we've been importing almost 30% electricity from our good friends, the French, and other European partners. And what happens if they have a bad day and they say, well, we need it ourselves, folks? Then we really are doomed.
Yeah, and one of the things the report points out is that by 2030 we will lose 80% of our nuclear generation capacity, which frankly is a scandal and terrifying. So the point of difference, really, you're saying, between the Reform Party and the Conservative Party is you both agree now that net zero is impractical, we cannot go down this path, but you are saying that actually we need more gas power because it's quicker and cheaper, whereas the Conservatives are saying that actually the long-term answer is nuclear. Now, whichever route you go down, it's going to cost money, at least initially. The Conservatives in this report are saying that we should use this regulated asset base programme, which has advantages but essentially puts all the cost up front on the taxpayer, all the risk on the taxpayer. But what are the alternatives in the current financial climate? How would you fund the capital investment that's required to make these changes?
The faster and cheaper route is a lot more gas. and not to replace the renewables. And what I see in this report is a wish to continue replacing renewables along the way, and I think that is completely wrong. So it's a blend of gas and nuclear is what is required, and less renewables as they essentially wear out. That's the key thing, and to accelerate it, because otherwise, it's a simple basic maths. The cost of renewables plus backup must cost more than backup. And that's what this government is finding out after the Conservatives, of course, created this disaster. When actually, guess what? Claire Coutinho was the Secretary of State for DESNZ, for the new net zero department back in 2023.
To be fair to her, she did commission this kind of overall cost analysis that for some incredible reason had not been undertaken before. I mean, there's an amazing line in this report that basically said the UK is the second worst prospect for solar in the world. And you think, well, why did anybody ever think that was a good idea?
But Richard, can I just push on the nuclear stuff? Look, we can't build a reservoir in this country. What have we built? 1 in 40 years. How many years is it going to take to expand our nuclear facilities? And how much would it cost? I mean, I have no faith it would happen in my lifetime.
Oh, Andrew, you're going to live a long and prosperous life. So definitely there will be SMRs. And I think that's the way forward. Small modular reactors, both British-built ones, but also others from overseas. So we've got a diversity of suppliers there. But in a sense, you're right to be very concerned about our ability to deliver huge long-term projects. And that's why I'm right to say we need a lot more gas power plants a lot faster, and the government has to accelerate that and push that and grant the consents. There are numerous providers of gas power plants who are desperate to be given the go-ahead to do that, and we've got to get on with it. We've got to press the accelerator into turbocharging into 8th gear of a wonderful combustion engine car.
And we've also got, of course, 2 decisions the Prime Minister must make on Jackdaw and Rosebank, Richard Tice, these gas oil fields in the North Sea. The word is only one of them is going to get the go-ahead. If both of them were given the go-ahead, wouldn't that instantly create some of the extra fuel security, energy security we need, apart from revenue for the Exchequer?
Of course, both should be given the go-ahead instantly, but the Prime Minister seems to be doing what he does, which is sit on the fence and says, well, maybe, I don't want to upset anybody. He's got to get on with it, as well as granting licences for anybody who wants a new oil and gas field exploration licence in the North Sea. That's what the Norwegians are doing, literally just the other side of the line in the North Sea. And the Prime Minister, he needs to be brave. He needs to show some courage and promote good jobs, highly skilled, highly well-paid jobs, in particular in Scotland, around Aberdeen and beyond, that then sort of trickles out elsewhere in the country.
Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Always good to talk to you. Always good to talk to Richard Tice.
Nuclear, in theory, is a great idea.
Yeah.
But you look at Sizewell C.
Yeah.
It was costed at 20 billion.
It's
already at 40 billion. That cost is now going to be borne by the taxpayer, and they're not convinced yet that it's going to work. And the people who have been building it have been told by the French government never to use that design again.
I just said to Richard Tice, I've just no faith that they could even build a new nuclear power station in my lifetime, and I'm a 60-something man.
Exactly.
And we are so no good at this.
The small modular reactions are the way forward.
Fine.
And to be fair to the last government, they were relying on those, but they haven't come on stream as quickly as people.
No, they never do, because we're rubbish. We just can't do public sector infrastructure projects, can we? Now, moving on. The social media giant Meta, in court in the United States, accused of deliberately engineering its Facebook and Instagram platform to be addictive to children. Many of the parents of children who have died after becoming addicted to social media are involved in this trial. It is high-powered stuff.
Well, Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, says it strongly disagrees with the allegations. The major social media trial is set to last 6 to 8 weeks, and it will feature testimony from Meta boss Mark Zuckerberg.
Kate Jones is the White House Bureau Chief at World Media UK. Kate, good morning. This is an extraordinarily high-profile case. The whole of America's talking about it. Are we finally going to see these champions of the internet, these media giants, brought to book, with talk I read somewhere today that fines could be up to £1 trillion?
Yeah, hard to say because they're also appealing the cases that they've lost. So the charge that Meta has said is that this is an excessive amount to ask for, and the law does require the fine to match the harm, and they have to prove the harm first. And of course, there's 29 states coming out in this case, and the essence of their argument is that the design of the product was intended to addict children and compulsively engage them. And I think if you go into some of the patents that Meta filed originally as it went through and adopted and modified its program, you can see certainly that they were intended to monitor the behavior of the user and then interact accordingly and encourage them to use it again and again by, maybe showing them material that was enjoyable, but the engagement was encouraged. So later on, you can see that they also placed controls around what children could see online. But the big question, I think, at the root of this case is whether or not they did enough. Because if they didn't modify the algorithms if they were considered addictive, then just by placing controls around them, they're going to have to show something greater and more impactful than that.
And in this country, as in Australia, Kate, you'll be aware that Australia have brought in a ban on children under 16 having access to certain parts of social media. We're considering the same here. Is that happening in any states in America? And would it be a statewide decision, or would it be a White House decision?
Well, normally you have certain decisions are made by states, and then other decisions are made at a congressional level. So you would need some kind of congressional law. And lawmakers may be considering that, but they tend to work with the social media companies. These are large businesses, and they do have some control over what happens. But in my view, it's somewhat lost control because they became so expansive. It's very difficult to rein in social media at this kind of level of user engagement and then place later these kinds of controls after it's been discovered to have problems.
What could be the long-term consequences for the US tech industry as a whole? It's been one of the fastest growing sectors in the whole world. It's driven economic growth in the US while the rest of the West has stagnated. This could be a massive blow for the sector.
It could be a massive blow for the sector because this is 29 states coming up against one of the media giants. And regardless of what is right or wrong, the outcome of a case like this will be a precedent setter for how social media is watched, used, and what is acceptable use. And particularly in the case of children, there's a difficulty for everyone here in that there wasn't a parental requirement for a child over 13 to register. But there is a requirement under the Federal Trade Commission that Meta, if it did discover that a child had, say, lied about their age, that they would modify the content and based on that. And we don't know yet. A lot of these records are going to come out as this case draws out. Over the 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to learn a lot more about what was happening internally. Because, of course, the claims are broad, but what actually was happening and what the key element in this case is going to be, do those algorithms that monitor whether or not there is engagement and then modify to that engagement, encourage certain behaviors, particularly in young people. And if they do, those algorithms themselves will be part of the problem. Because just placing guardrails around them, as Meta certainly did, attempting to reduce the timing, placing larger controls over this over 13 up to 18 group, that may not be enough. You have to get down into the root of, does an algorithm that watches your behavior and modifies its treatment of you based on that behavior, is that something that's appropriate, and especially for that age group?
Well, Kate Jones from the World Media UK, she's the White House Bureau Chief there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Britain's Newsroom.
Now it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and you have just 2 days now to get your chance to win that £60,000 cash. Remember, it's tax-free, plus you get a gold bar. It's called our Golden Summer Celebration. Here's how you do it.
Welcome to Orla Santi by Domes Resorts. There's just 2 days left to see how you could win big in our golden summer celebration. And you could be enjoying a golden year with an incredible £60,000 to be won. That's tax-free cash that you'll get to spend on anything you like. What would you do with it? You could relax knowing that we've got those day-to-day financial pressures sorted. Or find yourself celebrating in the lap of 5-star luxury, somewhere like here, the Spritzeria. Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 that you can keep or gift to a loved one. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on Friday.
For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Boys.
Well, good luck with that. Coming up next, can you guess how much Sir Chris Wormold, who was a former top civil servant, was paid after being ousted by Keir Starmer? He was only in the job for 14 months. What kind of payoff do you
I'll give you a clue. Far too much. And it came from you, the taxpayer.
Talking of being overpaid, we'll be going through that and more with our panel. I thought they were only paid in rich tea biscuits, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Poundy and Parry.
Indeed. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand. Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
OK, it is 29 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. Don't forget, you can also listen on your radio, which is what I do when I'm at home.
And our listening figures on radio are going through the roof, which is really terrific.
So you just say, Alexa, play GB News. And I wonder if a whole load of Alexas across the country have now switched this on.
Who's Alexa?
I did call one of my children Alexa the other day. I said, Alexa, it's tea time. None of my children are called Alexa.
I know what it is, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't have it.
A smart speaker.
Yeah, we don't
just
have
like
that.
me.
We don't have that.
Oh, very good.
Now, gentlemen, we are here together. There is a very major royal story broken. Lord Spencer, Earl Spencer, the brother of Princess Diana.
Yes.
Who?
Oh yeah, we haven't introduced our panel.
They know it is. It's Mike Parry and Stephen Pound. What are you doing on the floor, Poundy?
Yeah.
Poundy, what are you doing?
So, would you allow me, just before we actually start...
It's descended into chaos already. Oh, my God.
It's somebody's birthday this weekend.
Oh, Stephen!
Would you allow me?
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
This is from me and from Memory Lane, the local florist in Handler, who are all big fans of yours.
That is very kind of you. Wow.
Happy birthday for Saturday.
Thank you.
No cake.
Or Sunday, I think.
Or Sunday.
Yeah. So no cake.
Well, I thought it's a bit hot for cake.
Yes.
But then today it started raining, so it would have been... so I thought rain, flowers...
But there you are. My first birthday present.
Poundy looking fragrant.
You know, it won't be the last.
Fragrant in your linen suits.
You haven't lost your grovelling tactics since you gave up politics, have you, Stephen? Well done, old boy. With my looks, you use what you got.
Yeah. Stephen, Mike Pound, you, of all people, will remember the death of Princess Diana, as many people... One of the things Lord Spencer says about releasing this book, which is coming out next month, a big surprise to all of us, was he grimaces when people say, I remember where I was when your sister died.
Yes.
Where were you when...
Well, I'll tell you. So next year, August 31st, is the 30th anniversary of Diana's death.
Yeah.
Now, all those years ago, I was in charge of the Press Association, and I got called in at...
Which is based in this building now.
It is indeed based in this building. It was then based in Victoria.
Yeah.
And the night news editor rang me and told me about the crash in Paris. And I thought, right, so I was straight in there, right. Some details were already known. We knew that Dodie Fard had sadly died. We knew that many other people in the car, the other two people in the car, the bodyguard and Diana, very badly injured. So I got in there, and by a great stroke of fortune, Robin Cook, the Foreign Secretary of this country, was with a man called Charlie Miller, who was my diplomatic correspondent in Manila, OK? And it was the early days of mobile phones, but I managed to get hold of Charlie on a mobile phone. Can you believe that? Halfway around the world. And explained to him what had happened. He said that probably explains why the plane we're on, Robin Cook's plane, has been called back to the terminal building as we were about to go on the runway. OK? Yeah. And I said, well, Charlie, I said, go and see Robin Cook. I said, nobody knows quite how badly Diana is injured, but she is badly injured. This terrible car crash in the tunnel in Paris. And, you know, find out what you can. 40 minutes later, he came back. He said, I've got some very, very bad news. I said, what? Diana is dead. Oh. And I had the responsibility to announce that to the world on a PA news flash, OK?
Wow.
And I was in the position where I couldn't get anybody to corroborate it, but I said, Charlie, is there any doubt about this? He said, none whatsoever. So I went with it 17 minutes ahead of the official announcement from the Élysée Palace by Monsieur Chauvenement, who was the French foreign minister, because when royalty is in trouble in your country, you go foreign secretary to foreign secretary, not head of state to head of state.
Amazing.
Amazing story. I'm sure we will come back to it.
Yeah, we
are
will.
Going to just cross live now to Kemi Badenoch, who is speaking ahead of the net zero announcement.
Our energy policy. I want to set out a better way, cleaner, cheaper, and more reliable power. Our mission is abundant energy, built around nuclear, renewables and gas, protecting both our economy and our environment. No one understands the problems with Britain's energy system better than your next speaker, the Right Honourable Claire Coutinho. Good energy policy should cut emissions, protect our natural environment and make Britain more resilient. It should not make electricity so expensive that families cannot afford it, businesses move production overseas, and we become more dependent on countries with lower environmental standards. A problem at the heart of British energy policy is that we have pursued ever cleaner electricity without asking enough about the cost of the whole system. The result is some of the most expensive electricity in the developed world. As Energy Secretary, Claire saw firsthand where the system was going wrong. Since then, she and her team have put thousands of hours into understanding what has driven up electricity costs, what needs to change, and how we can bring bills down for families and businesses. And that matters, because Conservatives have not always got this right. Mistakes have been made, but recognising a mistake is only useful if you are prepared to fix it. And that is what this new Conservative Party, this different generation of Conservatives, is determined to do. There is a lot of political noise about energy. What Claire has been doing is the serious work, looking at the evidence, understanding the costs. Even though she's 7 months pregnant, she's still doing it, and working out what a better system would actually look like. That is how we will get Britain working again. So I am delighted to introduce my friend and our Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho.
Thank you. Countries around the world have proven over and over again that the two most important drivers for economic growth are cheap, abundant energy and economic freedom. That's why one of the biggest problems that we face in Britain today is the fact that we have the highest electricity prices in the developed world. There is simply no such thing as a high-growth, low-energy country. And as our electricity has got cleaner, it's also got more expensive. That means we are using less of it, just as the rest of the world is using more. Our expensive electricity is pushing our industry overseas. It's harming our ambitions in AI, and it's hurting living standards. These things are widely acknowledged. But what people don't admit is that expensive electricity is bad for the environment too. Over the summer, climate policy has been in the news. It's been said by some that we are in denial. But we Conservatives are not in denial about climate change. It's the left who are in denial about the fact that their climate policy is failing. Look at where our emissions actually come from now. Just 10% of our emissions come from our electricity grid. Over 90% come from transport, heating, and elsewhere in the economy. There is simply no point having the cleanest electricity in the world if nobody in Britain can afford to use it. If you want to cut emissions, then you need people to want electric cars and electric heating. And for that, your number one priority should be to make electricity cheap. But net zero legislation has forced us to do the opposite. In fact, Ed Miliband's Clean Power 2030 target is intent on squeezing every last drop of carbon out of our electricity, no matter the cost. But making electricity expensive puts electrification out of reach for ordinary families. It's moving our industry to more polluting countries overseas, forcing us to import back those same goods with higher emissions. That is not improving the climate. It's madness, especially when electrification is a far bigger prize than perfectly clean electricity when it comes to reducing emissions. There are some who will say that the cost is worth it because it gives us climate leadership. But our high electricity prices are not convincing any other countries to follow our lead. In fact, it's our hot and heavy pursuit of net zero that is giving the others the ick. The difference between us and other parties is that we want a climate policy to work for the economy and for the environment. That's why we're the only party to call for the measurement of offshoring of emissions. That's why we think the best way to help people adopt clean tech is not endless bans and mandates and subsidies, but to make it work for consumers. Rather than forcing people to do what we want, Our job as politicians should be to lift the barriers in their way. That's why we believe we should focus all of our attention on making electricity cheap and then let consumer choice be king. That is the only approach that will work in the long term. That's why, for the economy or for the environment, cheap electricity is the holy grail. But first, let me explain how we got here. Back in 2023, I had just been appointed Energy Secretary in the last Conservative government. A few weeks in, I asked civil servants what I thought was a simple question. Prove to me that renewables are cheap. Like all of you, I'd heard people saying that for years. But to my astonishment, they could not prove it. Our entire energy policy was based on this promise that all this wind and solar was going to cut bills. And yet, when I combed through the spreadsheets put in front of me, I realised that they didn't have the evidence there to back it up. The truth is that too much wind and solar creates all of these extra hidden costs. It's like a Ryanair flight. The ticket might look cheap, but once you've paid for a bag, a seat and a sandwich, you realise you've been stung. We are going to pay billions to switch wind farms off when it's too windy. Billions for expensive backup when it's not windy enough. Tens of billions for the hundreds of miles of extra pylons needed to connect all of these extra panels and turbines into the grid. Cost after cost after cost. And all of that is landing on people's energy bills. So I asked the department to get to work and do a proper analysis of all of these extra costs. But then we had an election and Ed Miliband cancelled that work. Either he didn't want to know the truth or he didn't care. And the truth is, Labour's £300 energy bills promise was only ever a number to get them through an election trail. And far from bills going down by £300, since the election, bills have gone up by £300 instead. Which brings me to why we are all here today. For me, this is unfinished business. This is why I asked Kemi if I could stay in the energy brief after the election. 2 years after Ed Miliband cancelled the true costing of renewables that I started, Onward have stepped in to finish the job. This is the single most detailed costing of the electricity system that has ever been produced in British politics. And the findings are remarkable. It shows that we can save consumers over £320 billion on their electricity bills by 2050 if we prioritise cheap electricity over a net zero grid dominated by wind and solar. And we'd still have electricity which is nearly 80% clean at the end of it. That's the equivalent savings of £540 per British household per year for the next 2 decades. This is the work that should have been done by government, but has not been, because they're more driven by ideology than they are by evidence. I want to thank the author, Ed Heslett, who is one of the most remarkable minds emerging in energy policy today, and Marlon Day and his team at Transera Energy for carrying out the extensive modelling behind this report. The cheap power system prioritises costs. It has a bit more gas, it triples our nuclear power, and it has far fewer wind and solar farms, and it gets rid of the carbon tax. So where do the savings come from? Roughly half the savings come from having to build much less grid, fewer pylons and less cables carving up the countryside. The rest of the savings come from lower wholesale prices, lower balancing costs and subsidies. Basically, we'd pay a lot less money to switch wind farms off when it's too windy, or for backup when it's not windy enough. This is important because the government is currently running another auction round for renewables. In the last one, Ed Miliband signed up to the highest cost of offshore wind in a decade, and this one is set to be no cheaper. But to decide whether we should be locking ourselves into these contracts which last for 20 years, we should know whether or not they're going to make our electricity system cheaper. The average electricity price so far this year is £97 per megawatt hour. The Climate Change Committee thinks the cost of offshore wind is £38 per megawatt hour. The Department for Energy thinks that it's £100 per megawatt hour. But if you actually add up all the extra costs that wind and solar add to the system, then it should be seen as closer to £230 per megawatt hour. Whichever way you look at it, that is eye-wateringly expensive. If cheap electricity is the holy grail, then we should do everything we can to achieve it. Our cheap power plan set out last year would help in the immediate term. It would cut VAT off energy bills, axe the carbon tax, and scrap outdated wind subsidies, and it could save households £200 immediately. For the long term, this report shows why we should abolish counterproductive net zero legislation pushing us towards more expensive electricity. We would adopt the Fingleton Review to build nuclear much, much more cheaply. We would allow for new gas power to keep the lights on, and we would keep zonal pricing on the table if it can cut bills. We'd auction large grid connections to get big users connected quickly, and we'd bring competition into building transmission infrastructure. But above all, we would rewire energy policy to make electricity cheap again. The truth is that our problems in energy are a symptom of something wider in politics. We've handed more and more of our powers to unaccountable bodies who pay no price for being wrong. Too much of politics has become interested in the optics than doing the hard yards of working out the best route for the country and then seeking to persuade. That's why we end up with Andy Burnham shirking decisions on the North Sea, even though he knows our homegrown gas is much cleaner than importing high-emission gas from abroad. If civil servants tell politicians that renewables are cheap when they aren't, then we are going to make bad decisions. When the Climate Change Committee gets their costing for offshore wind for the latest carbon budget wrong by a factor of 300%, they face no repercussions. Ofgem are supposed to be the consumer watchdog, and yet they pay no penalties when bills go up and up and up. Our grid operator is so reluctant to face the truth that renewables are making our grid unstable that its own control room operators had to come to me this summer to make their concerns heard. And on it goes. Our bills are going up and up and up, and nobody seems to be in charge. We have to bring back pragmatism and accountability to our energy policy making. This is not about turning our back on our duty to provide the next generation with a better environment. The Burkean contract between the living and those yet to be born is a core conservative principle which we should never abandon. But while the Labour Party will promise you £300 off your bills that they will never deliver, and Reform think repeatedly saying net stupid zero is enough of a plan to cut bills, ours is the case for a serious energy policy that works for the climate and for the consumer. I believe Kemi Badenoch is the only political leader in Britain with the courage, the conviction, and the intellectual rigour to create the radical overhaul of energy policy that we need. This much-needed report demonstrates that we can have both economic prosperity and a better environment if we make electricity cheap, let the economy grow, and make consumer choice king. That is the serious choice, that's the optimistic choice, and that's what the next Conservative government will deliver. Thank you.
Don't we need to have Mike's live? So that was Claire Coutinho. She's the shadow climate change, energy. How big is her title? Net Zero Secretary, saying how they would embrace this report, which had been written by a Conservative think tank, which could save households £540 a year, but not before 2030. What do you think, Mike? Well, bear in mind it was the Tories that signed us up to these ludicrous net zero targets in the first place, in the form of Theresa May, without putting it to a vote in the Commons.
Absolutely. And another horrifying figure is if we don't do something about it, right, the bill for pursuing net zero, if it is not corrected, will cost this country £320 billion by 2050. Now, I mean, this is the scale of the enormity of what it's costing the country. The way that money is flowing out of this country abroad to pursue net zero, mostly to China and to Norway and other countries, is a scandal. It's a scandal. Money is literally leaving these shores and leaving this country.
The really important point of this report is that we have pursued decarbonisation, so offshoring carbon emissions, reducing the amount of industry, all those things, before we've pursued electrification.
Yeah.
So we've made it really, really expensive to get electricity before we're ready to power up our grid, to power these new electric cars.
The real issue is the two things. Firstly, the national grid can't cope with it, with the present influx. There have been 2 days last year when the overwhelming amount of energy in this country was actually produced by renewables, wind, nuclear, etc. And so I think the point about this is that, with all due respect, Mike, those figures are fantasy figures.
Yeah, they're not.
Look, let's just get, there's over 1 million jobs in this country which are linked to net zero.
No, I don't accept that. I'm sorry, I do not accept that.
Look, Mike, you can either
Where
go
are
backwards...
they? Where are they? Where are those jobs, Stephen, please? Those jobs are in China.
Of course
they're building all the windmills, they're building all the solar panels.
At the moment, we are building our own solar panels. There's 2 companies in this country that make solar panels.
But, Stephen, one of the points in this report, it says the UK is the second worst prospect in the world for solar power because when we need most electricity, the winter, we have very poor sunlight. Exactly. It was a mistake ever to think that solar can be part of our grid. It's a nice to have for households on your roof, but it can never be part of our grid.
We're talking about an energy mix. We're talking about wind.
Yes, but the problem with renewables, Stephen, is that they are unreliable. So if you have renewables, you also have to have the same capacity in firm generation, which is basically gas or nuclear. So it's double the cost.
Well, of course it is. And the people who are making the most money are those people who own the power stations, which have to be on readiness at all times in case the wind doesn't blow, in case the sun doesn't blow. You've got to start up
power stations. The tide always flows in and out. You know. So, look, here's the important thing.
But then you have a transmission problem because where the renewables are generated, so the sea, for example, for wind, is a long way from the centres of population. So then you have these enormous transition costs that just don't apply.
And they're not there. The cables aren't there.
The key word there is transition.
You've got to build them across countryside and ruin it.
What I want more than anything else is to actually have energy security in this country.
Right. Let's open up Rosebank and Jackdaw oil fields.
Exactly.
Because
that'll give us some energy security.
And what do we do? That we do not have the refining capacity to do that. And don't forget, we have to sell that on the open.
Because we've closed it all down. We've closed it all down. We used to have the refining capacity.
But
we haven't got any refineries left in this country. It's madness.
There's no way that we could actually be energy self-sufficient on the basis of what's happening in the North Sea at the present time. Jackdaw and Rosebank are just tapped out.
No, they're not.
No, of course they're not. That's some absolute
why do you think
nonsense.
BP are pulling out? Why do you think BP have gone to Brazil?
Because of the attitude of the government.
Yeah, BP are pulling out, Stephen, because they charge 78% on the profit of getting on out to sea. How come the Norwegians can create a £1.3 trillion national wealth fund which funds their social security and we can't? It's the same sea. It's the same sea.
Hang on a second. The sovereign wealth fund that the Norwegians did, they came up in 1986. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of this country in 1986. We had 2 options. We could have had a sovereign wealth fund which would actually funded the whole of our senior service and pensions and everything like that, instead of which we released it in shareholder dividends and tax cuts. It was a choice that the government made. That was the choice that Margaret Thatcher made. It was the wrong choice.
We've had like 18 or 19 years of Labour government since that time.
But Mike, that is an important point. Once you've privatised the oil fields, that's it. It's a single decision. And for 10 years, we enjoyed unprecedented economic growth and the ability to cut taxes. But once you've sold it, you've sold it. And unlike the Norwegians, we have no recourse to that gas and oil now. They still do. It was a big mistake.
But we could go back in because Ed Miliband started... Hang on. Ed Miliband started GB Energy. GB Energy can...
It's a debt company.
No. Can independently apply for licences to drill in the North Sea and create the wealth for this country. And it's all very well saying, well, we haven't got a sovereign wealth fund. Well, if you don't start one, you won't get one. So what about a bit of foresight and have one in 20 years' time?
Well, I'm sorry. We simply do not have the capacity to create a sovereign wealth fund from scratch today. We can't. What we have to do...
Why not?
Let's all agree with one thing. We all want energy security in this country, whether it is, your idea of simply going back to carbon emission emitting...
No, it's in addition to. They're in addition to.
Precisely. So this is exactly what Andy Burnham is saying.
He's only going to open one of them.
Well, hang on, he's actually talking about...
No, one of them. We're going to get one.
We're
not getting Rosebank and Jackdaw. He has to throw some red meat to his green guild Labour backbenchers.
I'm sorry. In all honesty, I think we've moved on a bit from that. The fact that even Mieta van Bulo is now actually
who is the Ed Miliband's successor as climate change secretary. She's a net zero fanatic as well.
We are going to have to leave it there. There is lots more to come on this, including the Prime Minister's plan to end rough sleeping on Christmas Day. But where is he going to move people to? You're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News, and we've got lots more to come, including on this net stupid zero argument, in the words of Richard Tye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office. A very different feel across the UK compared with summer so far. Some bright spells, yes, but also frequent heavy showers, and not just for northern parts of the UK. Some other areas across England and Wales where we desperately need rain have had a splash of rain overnight, not much, and there'll be further showers through the day today. So, yeah, with a cooler feel as well. It's a marked contrast compared with summer so far. But the most frequent showers always across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England, where there'll be some hail and thunder, and it will feel notably cool with a brisk breeze. Further south, low to mid-20s. In any sunny spells, there will be some fleeting showers. Now, these are going to be very hit and miss. Some places will mostly avoid them and stay dry with sunny spells. Other areas will get a brief shower or two. Not enough to help the current situation, but better than nothing. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, plastered with showers, those showers pushing south into northern parts of England. The far north of Scotland, fewer showers. They're not quite as lively here, with cooler air all in all for Shetland as well as Orkney. Now, the showers in the northwest do tend to trickle southwards on Wednesday night into Thursday. As a result, I think we're likely to see more showers for England and Wales by the start of Thursday compared with much of today. Temperatures overnight a little bit fresher, especially towards the north, but still in the teens in many places, so not a cold night by any stretch of the imagination. And we start Thursday with very mixed weather across the country. Some areas seeing heavy rain. The heaviest rain, most likely northern England into parts of Wales, and then that will sink south through the day. Hail and thunder possible anywhere across England or Wales. And with these heavy showers, it's certainly going to be something we've not experienced a great deal of during the summer so far. Also, temperatures down a touch on today, so a notably cooler feel. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win over £65,000 in prizes. You could be our latest Great British Giveaway winner. First of all, we want to give you £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also receive a fine gold bar worth over £5,000.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock on Wednesday, the 19th of August. We are live across the United Kingdom. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Conservative Party claims that households could save about £540 a year after 2030 if net zero regulations are scrapped. The Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho, spoke in the last half hour.
One of the biggest problems that we face in Britain today is the fact that we have the highest electricity prices in the developed world.
Grown. The Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, wants the United Kingdom to join the European Union's migration and asylum pact so that Britain can legally return migrants to their first EU port of entry. But of course, there's a major catch.
Now, I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country.
Beds for Christmas. This morning, Andy Burnham vows to get everyone sleeping rough indoors for Christmas. But where will the places for homeless people come from?
Yes, the Prime Minister has a big, bold plan to get people off the streets for Christmas. But has he built himself a useful loophole in that wording? Find out more with me very soon.
And breaking news and another blow for the country. Inflation has gone to 2.9%, a sharp rise, driven mainly by an increase in energy bills.
And a quite difficult diagnosis. Queen Camilla speaks out about the King's determination to carry out royal duties whilst battling cancer.
I remember coming to see our Maggie's just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult.
Diana's brother tells all. Earl Spencer will break his silence on Princess Diana in a new book coming out next month. It will conclude untold detail about his sister's life and also the big rows behind the scenes in the run-up to her funeral. Is this a cash grab for Lord Spencer?
And in the US, there is a Meta showdown. The tech giant behind Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp faces a courtroom battle over allegations that it ignored dangers to children. Rob Bonta is the Attorney General of California.
Proud to co-lead this national fight to demand accountability and to demand justice. This is about our children, the next generation, our kids. They deserve to be safe.
Well, the book about Princess Diana, I think it will fly off the shelves because Lord Spencer says he's going to reveal lots of details that we don't know. If you recall, in the week after the death of Diana, there was a huge row over the type of funeral she should have, whether the flag should be flying above Buckingham Palace or not. There was even a suggestion that the royal family didn't want her body brought back on a royal flight because she was no longer a member of the royal family because they'd taken HRH off her when she was divorced. Famously, Prince Charles is alleged to have said to the King, to the Queen, do you want her coming back in a Harrods van?
Yeah.
So all of that will be revisited with more detail, and it is the last thing the royal family will want.
Probably the last thing the country needs as well, to be honest. I know it will sell, I know it will make money, But I don't like this modern trend of feeling that you have to tell everybody everything and tell your story to the world. Why not just leave it be? Leave it be.
It's 30 years next year to the day that she died in that Paris underpass. And of course, Mike Parra, very own, telling us that extraordinary story. He broke it to the world with a press association snap. Amazing moment.
And having to have the confidence that it really was true without any corroborating sources in the middle of the night, that was quite a risk.
His diplomatic correspondent was on the same plane as the Foreign Secretary, Robin Cook, who said, she's definitely dead. Bang, there was the story.
Do you remember where you were when you heard the news? Everybody does. I know what I was doing.
Well, I was getting ready to go in and actually do some radio, and I had Radio 4 on, and I thought, why are these people on a Sunday? And then I thought, they're doing a rehearsal for the death of a senior royal, and I thought, how has this gone out on air? And then when they said Diana and Jodie Foster dead, I thought, and I knew then this is going to be an extraordinary week.
I was 14, I think, at the time, and we had Radio 4 on in the background at home, and just like you, I kind of wasn't really listening, and then suddenly I picked up, thought, no, can this really be true? I went and switched on the television, and
it was
unbelievable.
Yeah, it was.
We were both told by the Today programme.
We were.
In the good old days.
Yes, I don't ever listen to the BBC now. Of course, I listen to
GBNews.com. /your say, that's how you get in touch with us. Let us know what you think about everything we're discussing today.
First, though, here's the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. Andy Burnham has pledged to work to get everyone in for Christmas as he continues to build on his vow to end rough sleeping. The Prime Minister is attempting a repeat of efforts during the COVID pandemic when the Everyone In scheme resulted in thousands of rough sleepers across England being taken in off the streets. The latest annual national statistics published by the government in February estimated there were 4,793 people sleeping rough on a single night in autumn last year in England. This was a new record high in the fourth annual increase in a row. Claire Coutinho says the government should prioritise cheap power over renewable energy. The Conservatives have claimed households could save about £540 a year after 2030 if net zero regulations are scrapped. The Shadow Energy Secretary spoke today.
Prove to me that renewables are cheap. Like all of you, I'd heard people saying that for years. But to my astonishment, they could not prove it. Our entire energy policy was based on this promise that all this wind and solar was going to cut bills. And yet, when I combed through the spreadsheets put in front of me, I realised that they didn't have the evidence there to back it up. The truth is that too much wind and solar creates all of these extra hidden costs. It's like a Ryanair flight. The ticket might look cheap, but once you've paid for a bag, a seat and a sandwich, you realise you've been stung.
The UK's inflation rate rose to 2.9% in the year to July, up from 2.6% the month before. Widely expected by economists, the increase was driven by the largest rise in gas prices for almost 4 years, according to the ONS. Chancellor John Healey says Iran war inflation continues to impact prices here at home, but Britain's economy is resilient. Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland and Shadow Minister for Energy Security and Net Zero, Andrew Bowie, spoke to GB News.
When Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, we left government with inflation going down. That was due to hard choices being taken by government, by the Chancellor then, Jeremy Hunt, and by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. It meant living within our means and not doing everything that maybe we wanted to do or would have made life a lot easier for us politically as a party, as a government. This government seemed to have learnt no lessons from that and are making unfunded commitments right, left and centre. And frankly, that building behind me having sat empty for 5 weeks now, we haven't even been able to scrutinise any of these announcements that the new Prime Minister has been making.
Elsewhere, tennis star Nick Kyrgios has been banned from tennis after testing positive for cocaine. The 31-year-old Australian provided a sample during an ATP event in Mallorca in June this year. And in July, a World Anti-Doping Agency-accredited laboratory confirmed the presence of a metabolite of cocaine. In a statement posted on social media, he says, "I'm sorry to my fans, my family, my sponsors and everyone close to me. Above all, I'm sorry to the kids who follow me." He says, "I know the example this sets and I'm deeply disappointed in myself." Elsewhere, the Queen has spoken publicly for the first time about the difficult emotional experience of having to keep the King's cancer diagnosis a secret. In a new film made in collaboration between Buckingham Palace and Maggie's cancer charity to mark its 30th anniversary, Queen Camilla reveals she was longing to let it out during a visit to one of their cancer support centres in January 2024, just days before the King's diagnosis was officially disclosed.
I remember coming to see our Maggie's just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult. I almost said something, but I felt that it wasn't the time to say. Looked at everybody who was suffering and all the relations, and I think it made me realise even more how important these places were.
In other news, 3 members of the same family have died after getting into difficulty in the water off the Sussex coast. Another was taken to hospital in a critical condition. Ambulances, 2 helicopters and Coast Guards rushed to Shoreham by Sea at 3 p.m. after reports of 4 people struggling in the water. Police said a man, a woman and a teenage girl died after being pulled from the sea. And Donald Trump has announced he's paused the imposition of 50% tariffs on more goods from Canada. The announcement came less than 2 hours before a levy on nearly $20 billion of Canadian imports was set to go in place. The two sides have disagreed on several issues, including US tariffs on autos and many Canadian provinces banning American liquor sales. Mr. Trump and the Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke twice this week, and trade negotiators have been engaged in intense talks since July after the president threatened the new levy with a deadline of today. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at 11:30.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, you'd have heard her earlier. The Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho, has laid out how she says a Conservative government would prioritise cheaper energy over decarbonising Britain's power grid. Have a listen to her.
One of the biggest problems that we face in Britain today is the fact that we have the highest electricity prices in the developed world. There is simply no such thing as a high-growth, low-energy country. And as our electricity has got cleaner, it's also got more expensive. That means we are using less of it, just as the rest of the world is using more.
Well, that's Claire Coutinho. You knew her when you were in the House. She's seen as one of the bright rising stars, isn't she?
Yeah, and one of the things that's pulled out in this report is the fact that until she became the Energy Secretary in 2023, nobody in government, including all the civil servants, had done this kind of wholesale cost analysis of renewables. So not just looking at the price of wind power at the turbine, but combining that with the cost of transmission, the fact that you then also need backup power because the wind doesn't always blow. So working out the total cost across the whole network, that work hadn't been done.
Extraordinary.
Which is extraordinary. And she commissioned that in 2023. And essentially this report is the finishing of that, because obviously the Conservatives lost. She, was no longer a minister. But this onward, the think tank have carried on that work. And this is the result.
We do have to point out, of course, it was Theresa May as Prime Minister who signed up to those net zero targets without even a vote in the House of Commons, as I recall.
That's right. And some of the information in the report is quite damning about how our firm power generation, as in reliable, so gas, nuclear, fossil fuel, has decreased ever since 2010. The reliance on renewables has gone up. Obviously, that was the plan. But overall, it's given us the most expensive electricity in the developed world, which is saying something.
Well, we're going to talk now to John Grant, who is a senior lecturer in sustainable construction and climate change. John Grant, good morning to you.
Good morning again.
Nice to talk to you. You're aware of this report. Have the Tories found the route in which we can still be green and conserve and avoid fossil fuels, but at a much lower cost to households?
Well, the argument they're making is that that renewable energy is what has pushed the price up, rather than our prices being tagged to the gas price, which is, as your news just said, our gas price globally has just spiked once again. And because our energy grid is linked to that, we're getting an energy price spike. So isn't the renewable energy attached?
The report does point that out, and one of the suggested policy changes is to remove that pricing system so that we are not held to ransom by the gas price. But that's only one of the problems that we've got. One of the major problems that we've got is that renewables are not reliable, and so all the time we need to have this backup power ready to go that we're paying for whether or not we use it. And there's really no answer to that other than gas or nuclear.
No, there is another answer, and that's the fact that battery prices have dropped by 90% over the last 10 years. So this idea of energy storage, not just lithium batteries, it's not just that. There are many ways now that we can store energy.
So which countries in the world are using batteries to that end? Which countries in the world are using batteries like that to store energy generated by renewables?
We are at the front end
sounds
of the
like none.
transition. You just asked, what happens when you commit to renewables? What you commit when you go to renewables is a period of abundance. I don't think we really talk about that. But John, there is a huge amount of energy that we can store.
But we need an answer now.
Yeah.
By 2030, we are going to lose 80% of our nuclear capacity. We are actually in danger of blackouts. Now, the Tories want to build more nuclear. That will take a long time. Reforms say, forget about nuclear, let's just build gas power stations because at least they can come online quickly. Batteries, yes, maybe one day, but not now. So what's the answer now?
Well, that's just not true. We can install renewables at a very high rate.
We can install renewables, but we can't moderate the transmission of that energy into our grid properly or store it.
That's why there is this eye-watering transition price. But the good news is that for that transition price, we are going to stop this ridiculous situation, I'm sure you're aware, where we actually pay wind turbines not to put power into the grid. How crazy is that? And that is totally wrong. But by investing in new cables, by investing in the ability to store energy in its many forms, we can knock that into touch and maybe even give the people of Scotland, which are producing the vast amount at the moment, we can widen that, an opportunity for this rather than heading into non-renewable energy in a period where we have this global instability. The last thing we want to do is to go start pursuing fossil fuels in a world where fossil fuels prices are spiking. The last energy spike during the Ukraine would have paid for this transition, but here we are still discussing about why it's too expensive rather than accepting that there's going to be another spike. We need to transition. And we
John,
need to
you talked about.
really
John, can I jump in there? You talked about an eye-watering transition cost. How much is this eye-watering transition cost?
Well, the good news is that since 2020 to 2025, that has dropped by a factor of 7. But it is 880 billion that will be paid over the next 25 years. But the good news is,
and who pays that, John? John, who pays that?
It's an investment, families, not a cost.
But that's families have to pay that. Where are they going to find the money to pay that?
Well, it's over 25 years, right? It's not.
But it's still a lot of money over 25 years.
But we are already going to be spending, we have to improve, because the last 20 years we've been just appalling with regards to investment in our grid. Surprise, surprise, privatised energy just like privatised water. We've been skimming money for their shareholders but not investing in the future. And this is an ongoing problem that we have to face, that because we are now facing a climate that has changed, that we have to adjust to that, and the idea that you can't say there's no climate change anymore, so you turn on the zero carbon strategy, is the research made by Dr. Simon Clarke often outlines. I've not got enough time to go through it, but he's done some fantastic work and information about how we will get the money back, and it is reliable into the future, unlike fossil fuels, which we just have no idea what that future price is going to be. But we know it's not going to go down. But that's what we're estimating. I mean, you have a look at the price of gas projections to 2050. The estimate is that the price is going to go down relatively to what it is now. Really? When has that ever happened?
Well, it happens frequently, doesn't it? It goes up and down, as we can see from the charts.
But mostly it's on a upward trend, isn't it?
Well, as inflation is. But John Grant, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Andrew, I've just been looking at these grid batteries, and we do actually have some in the UK, and they're in major use in China, and they are useful to an extent, but they do have some problems, which are, A, they're extremely expensive.
Very expensive.
They have very, very short lifespan, and they only really can discharge for 2 to 4 hours. So they're good at emergency injections of energy to the grid and for balancing, but they're not, well, at the moment, they're certainly not an answer to long-term, firm electricity problems.
No, absolutely not.
We need a solution now, and that's why I think
Yeah.
The gas, more gas power stations is probably the only sensible answer for now, while we build more nuclear.
Because it's quick. Because even the smaller nuclear power stations, how long will it take this wretched country?
Small modular reactors are not yet ready to deploy.
Exactly.
And they are the answer one day, but they're not ready.
Yet. Oh, no.
And Sizewell C, that's not going to be ready for, well...
And we are facing a future, blackouts.
Exactly.
We had them in the 70s. Now, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. You've just 2 days to grab your chance to get that £60,000 cash, tax-free, plus the golden bar in a golden summer. Here's how you do it.
Welcome to Orla Santi by Domes Resorts. There's just 2 days left to see how you could win big in our golden summer celebration.
And you could be enjoying a golden year with an incredible £60,000 to be won.
That's tax-free cash that you'll get to spend on anything you like. What would you do with it?
You could relax knowing that we've got those day-to-day financial pressures sorted.
Or find yourself celebrating in the lap of five-star luxury, somewhere like here, the Spritzeria.
Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 that you can keep or gift to a loved one.
Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on Friday.
For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
So we've just heard from the Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho. GB News national reporter Charlie Peters is with her now. Charlie.
Well, good morning. Yes, we have heard that speech, and I'm very happy to say that Claire Coutinho joins us now. Claire, in your speech, you were talking about how civil servants, you'd commissioned them to do this research. That was then cancelled when Ed Miliband came into power. Why do you think he didn't want this information out there?
Well, look, I think the left have their head in the sand when it comes to climate policy. They want to say that net zero is great, but yet they won't do the actual work to cost it up so people can know what it's going to mean for them in their wallets. Well, we have done that work. And what the research shows is that we can save consumers £320 billion if we prioritise cheaper power. That's about £540 per household per year for the next 20 years. This is huge.
In your report, you're talking about renewables going from 95% to 80% of the energy mix. Now, in response, Labour say you're abandoning net zero amid a climate crisis. Reforms say that you are sitting on the fence here. What do you make to that?
Look, we're the only people who are putting forward a serious plan which could work for the economy and for the environment. So what we have in our mix is much, much more nuclear and a bit more gas. And the power still comes 80% from clean sources, but actually it's much cheaper overall. And the reason that's important is because if you actually want to clean up the economy, what you want is people to use electricity. But at the moment what we're doing is we're making it more and more expensive. That's pushing electrification out of the reach for an ordinary family that, by the way, might want electric heating or an electric car. What what we believe we should do is what's right for the economy and living standards, which is make electricity cheap, and then we can let consumers choose. I think that is a fundamentally conservative approach, and I think the criticisms we're getting from other parties is because they haven't done the work. They don't have any serious policies. They don't have any serious answers to either of these things, how to get to cheap energy or how to protect the environment.
In her response to this report last night, the Energy Secretary said that amid the climate crisis and as wildfires were raging on, that the Conservatives would not be addressing those risks. The implication there is that you're putting lives and livelihoods at risk. Do you want to extend the same criticism to the Labour government as we approach the winter? If heating bills remain high, are they putting lives at risk when people can't turn on their heating as it gets cold?
Well, look, one of the most important things for living standards is that energy is affordable for people. And you're right, this matters a huge amount. It's not just about quality for life. For some people, it's about life itself. But what I would say back to the new Energy Secretary, who promised us that she was going to be pragmatic, is to read the report. What she should recognise is that her climate policy is failing. Only 10% of emissions are actually in the power sector, 90% are elsewhere. And if she keeps making our power more and more expensive, then people can't electrify, and that's actually worse for the environment overall.
Claire Coutinho, thank you very much for your time this morning. That is the perspective of the Shadow Energy Secretary. They've put forward this report changing the renewables mix in the energy mix in this country. Renewables going down from 95% to 80% under these proposals. You've heard what Labour have to say, and Reform saying it's sitting on the fence, but the Conservatives say this is the most thought-through, costed and accurate assessment of where our energy policy and situation lies today.
Charlie Peters, thank you very much.
Got in the studio with us our panel here, Mike Parry, and political commentator and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Now, we were talking, Mike, about how you broke the extraordinary news about the death of Diana. This is back in the news again, 30th anniversary next year of her death, but her brother publishing a book about, and it's just called Diana, My Sister. He will have all sorts of revelations, and even though you may think, what else is there to say about that woman, I think the books will fly off the shelves.
Well, I think there's an immense amount of doubt. But the other thing... Excuse me, people are fascinated by her, there's no question about that. I was in the same room as her a couple of times, never actually met her personally, but she's doing some landmine stuff. And the woman had charisma, and she did. She's also had that Marilyn Monroe quality of absolute beauty, whichever way she turned. But on that particular day in August '97, I'd just been elected as an MP back in May, and it was the first holiday me and the kids had. My son and daughter were there, that was 7 and 9, and we're just trying to get away. So we go to our usual holiday, Holywell Bay in North Cornwall, where we used to go. And on that particular morning, we went to 10 o'clock mass in Newquay. And I said, the priest is wearing these sort of formal vestments that you only wear, like, on a holy day of obligation. What's going on? Because we had no idea. Because we had no mobile phones. The kids were watching Timmy Mallet on television.
It's absolutely true, the communication thing.
But the Catholic Church knew before anybody else, because the Vatican had sent a message out to all the Catholic priests.
Right. Surprised me. I saw the moment when the relationship between Charles and Diana broke irrevocably, and Charles suddenly realised what he'd got himself into. After she got married, they went on a tour of North Wales, and I was a young reporter on the Daily Express in Manchester, so I was deputed to go and see them. So in Llangollen or Colwyn Bay or somewhere like that...
Well said, by the way.
Thank you. There were enormous crowds. And when Prince Charles got out of the car, there was a sort of mild applause, and then Diana got out of the car, and it was like a football crowd. I'm not joking, they were trying to burst through the barriers to get to her. You know, we love you, throwing flowers at her.
She was rock star.
Absolutely. Charles was immediately completely stunned. I'm not joking, you could see it in his face. You know, what are they cheering at? What's going on? And that was the moment Diana became the rock star that she was, and Charles was completely in the shade.
Did he become resentful and jealous of her popularity?
I think he did from day one, honest to God. That happened then everywhere they went, OK? I mean, by the way, she gave me a very good living. When I worked for the Daily Express in New York, I spent a lot of my time on a yacht in the Caribbean following Diana's yacht around.
It's a tough old life, isn't it? It's a hard life.
With a load of paparazzi with a long lens. My job job was to spot the boat, and I mean,
Mike,
she was
isn't it extraordinary when she was taken up to Althrop, you know, to the Spencer family home to be the M1. The people were throwing flowers off the motorway bridges. I remember Churchill's funeral. I remember Margaret Thatcher's funeral. I don't remember anything like that.
Yeah.
And of course, if you remember Charles Spencer's eulogy, which always the suspicion was written by Boris Johnson, a great friend of his from Eton.
Oh, right.
Yeah, great suspicion that Boris wrote it. Yeah. But the applause started outside in Hyde Park
and then moved into the church.
Up the nave of the church. And but quite a few of my contacts were in the cathedral thinking, how's that going to play in here? And suddenly everybody's playing, and William and Harry were seen to be on their legs.
Well, it's extraordinary because Tony Blair actually handled it very well indeed. When Tony Blair, obviously written by Alistair Campbell,
People's Princess.
She was the People's Princess.
Yeah, the voice was catching,
but it was the right note. But
it kind of marked, didn't it, this transition from royalty and authority in our historical institutions being remote and removed from people. And I think there are arguments for having a situation like that, certainly, but more into this kind of new culture of celebrity, of being in touch with your emotions, those kind of things. That's something that Tony Blair fully understood, and Diana fully understood.
Yeah, she did.
But actually, our institution... you know, of course, Blair handled it really well. It was a difficult week for the royal family, absolutely. But looking back, I am not sure that this transition from being slightly removed, being much more professional, to letting it all hang out has actually been that good.
That's a very, very profound... You can actually have a whole debate about that. I mean, it's like, you know, Walter Bagehot talked about the House of Lords being... Once you actually see what goes on there, you're not going to be in love with it. It's the smoke and mirrors argument. I think there has to be an element of mystery. There has to be an element of sort of dignity and distance.
I agree, but there was too much mystery. And the crucial moment was the Queen not coming back from Balmoral.
And not flying the flag at half-mast.
Not flying the flag. When, do you know what? I went to Buckingham Palace to see what the fuss was all about. And 3 blocks away from Buckingham Palace in Victoria, I could smell this unusual sort of perfume thing. It was because there were so many flowers. The flowers went 300 yards from the fence at Buckingham Palace.
And they were really high.
And they were 3 or 4 foot high. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Wouldn't you agree with
absolutely
me?
Unbelievable.
It can go too far. When we actually want to get too much of the sort of intimate details about, there's an element of prurience about that. I mean, I don't think we need to know that much about the sort of, you know, as Miriam says, you know, sort of the rock star royalty. I think we should actually
I agree,
keep some dignity and distance.
But at the same time, to have that amount of power, influence in the world, and use it for things like AIDS,
and
to use it for things like clearing landmines, for you know, using it for things like helping those not as fortunate as you, was a major move forward in the history of the world.
My fear about this is that Spencer will not be always kind about the royal family in this book, particularly perhaps Charles, perhaps the late Queen and Prince Philip.
I'm certainly won't be. I mean that goes down as one of the most famous speeches of the 20th century, quite literally, you know, because it was so shattering in everything he said, and of course he made the pledge that he would have control of the boys' upbringing,
the blood family,
exactly, and all that kind of stuff. So very, very significant, and to wait 30 years to actually publish it. Well, it's going to be an absolute sensation.
For me, one of the most significant things that Earl Spencer said on that day was he referred to our blood.
He did.
He talked about the blood, the family themselves, you know, not just the hangers-on and not just the people from the outside, and so I thought there's a message there.
I know, and of course he's got 2 sisters too. Wonder what they think about it. Wonder what Harry and William think about it. I don't think William in particular will be happy, because it's going to wreak up a lot of hurt and sadness.
Exactly, but once again, it will lift the veil on just how disgracefully Diana was treated within the royal family. I don't mean disgracefully in that, you know, they deliberately attempted to isolate her, but she became very isolated inside the family and lonely and, you know,
Mike, do you
depressed.
remember that? You know, not for the first time, the broadcast media actually found the right button. That extraordinary when she said there were 3 people in this marriage.
So it got rather crowded.
When she said that, I nearly fell off my chair.
Which she was duped into giving, by the way, by the BBC and Martin Bashir.
I heard it was Martin Bashir, not for the last time. But when she actually said that, there were 3 people in this marriage. It was getting rather crowded.
It was extraordinary.
Can you imagine that ever been said before?
I know.
Could be something about that in this book, of course, because
there'll be a lot about that.
Spencer was duped into
because Bashir went to see him.
Exactly, to giving permission to approach Diana.
It is going to be a sensational book. It's the word. Sensation is a word I don't use very often, but it will be sensational.
Might take the week off.
Yes, yeah, there we are, Diana, and it's just called Diana, My Sister. Fascinating.
Oh,
Gentlemen, we'll be talking again about that. Here's your 60-second news update now with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories. Andy Burnham has pledged to work to get everyone in for Christmas as he continues to build on his vow to end rough sleeping. The Prime Minister is attempting a repeat of efforts during the COVID pandemic when the Everyone In scheme resulted in thousands of rough sleepers across England being taken in off the streets. The UK's inflation rate rose to 2.9% in the year to July, up from 2.6% the month before. Widely expected by economists, the increase was driven by the largest rise in gas prices for almost 4 years, according to the Office for National Statistics. Nick Kyrgios has been banned from tennis after testing positive for cocaine. The 31-year-old Australian provided a sample during an ATP event in Mallorca in June this year, and in July, a World Anti-Doping Agency-accredited laboratory confirmed the presence of a metabolite of cocaine. And the Queen has spoken publicly for the first time about the difficult emotional experience for having to keep the King's cancer diagnosis a secret. In a new film made in collaboration between Buckingham Palace and Maggie's cancer charity to mark its 30th anniversary, Queen Camilla reveals she was longing to let it out during a visit to one of their cancer support centres in January 2024. That was just days before the King's diagnosis was officially disclosed. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news from me at midday.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, lots more coming up on Britain's Newsroom, but up at noon we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Mark and Emily, who are here in the studio.
Here they are.
Good morning.
Good morning. Did you know that prison sex scandals have almost tripled?
I did, actually.
In the last few years.
This is involving often the female prison officers.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that female prison officers should be working in male prisons?
No, I'm afraid I don't. Take an old-fashioned
Why?
view.
Because of sex scandals or because of, strength disparity?
Both. And I think also it just creates tension with men.
Yes. And the prospect of blackmail.
It leaves them open to, and this is, I mean, it's serious enough, obviously, having any kind of relations with a prisoner, but the fact is you do open yourself then to being corrupted, smuggling drugs in, doing other deeds for criminals behind bars. They will use it to exploit you.
I
Yes,
know.
You know how
I
naked
think,
pictures can be used for
I think it was
blackmail
a
purposes.
very bad development. We were talking to somebody from, who were we talking to yesterday? The Howard League for Penal Reform.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, and we were talking about the problem with the recruitment. I said, but how did we get to this point where there's now a casual presumption that it's OK to have drugs in prison, illegal drugs?
Well, a prison
How
officer
did
got
that
in touch
happen?
with me, who's been in the business for 37 years, and he says, which may be similar as the police service, he said that they're recruiting graduates and they immediately get pushed up to being the managers or whatever.
And they're inexperienced.
Because they have a degree and they're very inexperienced. A degree doesn't mean you're going to be a good prison officer.
It does not.
But we're also going to be discussing how there is now a record number of foreigners claiming benefits, aren't we?
Yeah.
1.3 million.
Well, exactly, and feeds in, of course, to
the reform.
What Reform is saying, that, they would deny any benefits to foreign nationals. We'll be looking at Ed Davies' proposals.
Barmy.
He likes a stunt, doesn't he?
Barmy.
Well, he wants to take us back into this new EU
He wants to take
scheme.
us back into the EU full stop.
Yeah, of course.
That's what this is all about, really, Mark.
But the thing about this scheme is supposedly will allow us to put Channel migrants back over the Channel to their source country. How do you ever prove where they came into the EU? That was the problem with the previous Dublin Agreement. You can never prove where they entered the EU. France would never take them back.
And we looked at the figures on the Dublin regulation. Minuscule numbers were sent back each year.
Absolutely.
Minuscule, just in the low hundreds.
We took more than they took back.
Much
way
more, Emily.
Way more.
Way more.
A net beneficiary of migrants we were.
Well, we heard from Tom Perhesglove, former immigration minister.
He was rather good, actually.
And he made the point that, well, the best thing for us is to watch and wait, because if this does work in the UK,
Why
in
do
the
we need
EU,
to
then
join
we'll
it?
benefit from it. But we certainly don't need to join it, which I thought was very sensible.
Because yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
A lot more coming up.
Yep, all that coming up at midday with Mark and Emily. But up next, the Queen has given an emotional interview on having to keep the King's cancer diagnosis secret.
I remember coming to see our Maggie's just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult.
We're going to bring you more in just a moment. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. We broke the 62-day dry streak overnight in parts of Surrey, and there's more rain to come through today in the form of showers though, so not as reliable, and there is a risk of hail and thunder in the showers as well. We've got low pressure in charge where we see these weather fronts. That's where we'll see the focus of the showers throughout this afternoon across parts of Northern Ireland and then into parts of eastern Scotland. That's where we could actually see some impacts from the rainfall. Elsewhere, the rain will be most welcome, I'm sure. Further south, after a pretty wet start to the day, it will dry up this afternoon and brighten up too. Some sunshine around, and temperatures still a little bit above average, climbing towards the mid-20s. But elsewhere, it's going to be feeling much cooler. Showers will continue this evening, particularly across more northern areas. Quite heavy downpours. We could see 20 millimetres of rain falling in just an hour or two in some areas of Northern Ireland as well as Scotland. There's a risk of hail and lightning in there as well, so do take care if you are out and about. Further south, there's still a few showers around, but quite a lot of dry weather too. Temperatures in the high teens, low 20s to end today, and it should be a relatively mild night tonight. Then a little bit fresher across the far north, where we've got a northerly breeze picking up throughout this evening. This area of low pressure shifts further south, so the focus of the rain moves into parts of Wales and northern England overnight, so some heavy downpours are likely here. Again, a risk of thunderstorms too. Relatively dry further south, but the odd shower pushing through, and as I said, a relatively mild start to the day. Another showery day on the cards on Thursday, particularly across parts of northern England and Wales through the morning. It will be a little bit drier across more northern areas than today. Parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland still seeing some drier interludes, but also a few showers here and there, and it will feel much cooler. Temperatures will actually be below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Minutes to 12. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Queen Camilla has spoken about the emotional strain of keeping the King's cancer diagnosis secret before it was announced to the public. Take a listen.
I remember coming to see our Maggie's just after the King being diagnosed. Nobody could say anything at the time. That was quite difficult. I almost said something, but, you know, I felt that it wasn't the time to say it. Looked at everybody who was suffering and all the relations, and I think it made me realise even more how important these places were.
We're going to talk to this royal historian Alexander Larman. Alexander, I want to talk to you about the book that's coming out about Earl Spencer, about his sister Diana, which I think is going to be a real potboiler. But first, we don't hear the voice of Queen Camilla very often. I know people always say to when they do hear her, they say, hasn't she got a really deep voice? And she does.
Morning, Andrew. Yes, but she's got a marvellous voice, doesn't it? I mean, it's a kind of voice that you can sort of sense for cigarettes and for sherry and stuff like that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. She used to like a fag.
Absolutely, I think she still does. But what we really like about Camilla, I think, is that we can relate to her. She's had a life, and she's somebody who is, able to connect with people. And so, I mean, I found that film really moving. Actually, I found that it's quite sincere, and you can see also that she's had this connection with Maggie's Cancer Centre since 2008. She's been a patron for many years. And obviously, the fact that her husband has been suffering from this dreadful illness for now 2.5 years, there is that really personal connection to it. And I don't think that anyone would watch that and think it was just some sort of PR spin, which is not something you can always say about the royal family.
No. Now, what do you make of Earl Spencer? Were you surprised to hear he's writing a book about his sister called just simply that, My Sister Diana, because there was a lot of animus between him and the royal family at the time, and he says there's going to be secrets revealed that have never been revealed before. None of this, I imagine, could be welcome for anybody in the House of Windsor.
No, I mean, it's interesting the relationship that Charles Spencer has with the wider royal family, because obviously I think everyone remembers that extraordinary speech he made at Diana's funeral in 1997, where he essentially denounced the royal family and denounced how they'd been to Diana. And so he's never been in the heart of the royal family. He's always been kept somewhat at a remove. And I think that this book, which is quite a rush-released book, I mean, it's coming out next month, and it was only announced now, so there's going to be obviously a real sense over the next few weeks of anticipation. I'm sure copies won't be available till just before publication, because we're all wondering, I mean, what does he have to say? Because I mean, next year's the 30th anniversary of Diana's death. And I mean, let's be honest, the last 30 years have seen an awful lot of stuff discussed about Diana. I mean, she continues to be one of the most famous women in the world, even though she hasn't been with us in decades. And I think for what we're all wondering is it going to be revenge? Is it going to be essentially a speech he made all those years ago in book form, or is it going to be a very personal memoir? Because he's an excellent writer. I mean, anyone who read his very good book about what it was like to be abused at prep school will know that he's not a sensational writer. He's somebody who's capable of taking awful things and making them come to life. So I'm really intrigued to read it. I don't know if it's going to be good, but it will at least be a sincere book, which is something that you can't always say for people in the royal family.
What else is there to say about this woman? I speak as one who was a great admirer of Princess Diana, but as you point out, Alexander, she has been dead for 29 years. And we've had a lot of books and a lot of TV programmes and a lot of documentaries.
Well, the only thing that surprised me is why he isn't waiting until next year, because it would seem to me that the 30th anniversary of her death is when you're going to get all the attention. But maybe he thinks that coming in that year early is going to give the book that primacy, and it's going to give it that run. Because, I mean, obviously there will be things in it which are going to be, he will presumably be using family photographs that haven't been seen before. Presumably there'll be correspondence between him and Diana. Presumably there might be other stuff about the royal family as well. So it should be a very interesting book. The question will be, we'll find this out in a few weeks, does it genuinely have anything new to say that we didn't know about Diana? Does it genuinely shed new light on this woman who is still this source of fascination to everyone?
Well, Alexander Darman, thank you as always for coming on Britain's News. It's been great to see you, great to speak to you.
Always interesting to talk to him, isn't it? Now, still ahead, the Prime Minister says he doesn't want anyone sleeping rough this Christmas. But how can he make that reality? I'll tell you how he's going to make local councils do it, and where are they going to find the money? Because my one is cash-strapped. In fact, yours is too.
He says it's coming from Central Pot, doesn't he? But we shall see. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not just the UK where we've seen a change in the weather this week, certainly much cooler across northern and central Europe, with some very lively thunderstorms in places. Now, there are some thunderstorms around on Thursday for eastern parts of Spain into the south of Iberia, for example. But the liveliest downpours and thunderstorms most likely northern Italy into the Alps, and especially around the Italian lakes, where there could be some very significant rain right there through this week and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Becky Chad and the Beekeepers, Richard Mohammed and James. Well, thank you all for coming. So tell us what happened.
So I got a phone call about 7:30 on Sunday evening from one of the rangers to tell us that there was a forest fire that was spreading quite rapidly and the bees were in danger, and if we could get down as soon as we could to get them out.
And I suppose this is a real challenge, because bees, whilst they do flit around all over the place, they're pretty stuck to their colonies.
Yes, absolutely. The boys were the ones that were there.
When we approached it, the fire was quite close to the colonies, so we had to make a decision very quickly on whether or not to remove them from the apiary or keep them there and try and just water down the area. And after we saw flames on the horizon, we decided that, no, we've just got to make the decision to move the bees to a safer place, which we did.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I do think it's worrying that young people, I mean, are they I think they are more risk averse.
Yes.
I think they are scared of getting into personal space. I think you're right, there are issues about consent and everything else. But how sad that people say that it's been a year since they've been kissed. What is life for if you're not having a little kiss every now and again?
Yeah, the death of the kiss.
Apparently, much younger people now haven't had a good snog in over 12 months on average, the people that have been interviewed. But I would hazard a guess that that's because people are frightened. Men don't know when they can approach women anymore. Men can think 1 or 2 steps ahead on the same board, whereas a woman will think about 18 steps. So
I think you're overthinking it.
If a man takes you to Paris for the weekend, a woman will come back disappointed that they haven't proposed them, whereas a man thinks they've done a really great thing.
Why do men always think you're going to be proposed to in Paris? That you expect that. We don't expect
men
that.
are not
Just take
emotionally
us to
intelligent.
Paris.
The People's Channel.
We're only here for like 12 hours. We're flying home at 11 o'clock tonight.
Oh, and mummy and daughter.
Yeah, and it only costs £70, so we thought, well, why not? Because it's cheaper than a supermarket shop.
Supermarket shop or spending the day in Benidorm with cheap booze.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a no-brainer.
And is there no chance you might just decide we're going to stay?
No, because my husband would kill me. We did consider it because I said to my mum earlier on, we might just stay and miss the flight, but she's not up for it.
Has your husband actually visited Benidorm the Zone?
No, he hasn't. I've been here 27 times. That's my daughter's first time. She's a Benidorm virgin. But
well,
my husband's never been.
Not that he's told you anyway, let's put it like that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, Andy Burnham, our new Prime Minister, has announced a drive to get thousands of rough sleepers off the streets by Christmas.
This follows up what he said actually on the steps of Number 10 when he first arrived in Number 10. He is now attempting a repeat of efforts during the coronavirus pandemic when the Everyone In scheme resulted in thousands of rough sleepers across England being taken off the streets. But, of course, then the hotels were empty because of COVID.
Yeah.
They were closed.
We're all told to stay at home.
We were. And we did.
Some of those hotels, of course, have now got
migrants in.
People, asylum seekers. So the question is, and Olivia Utley is going to help us answer this, where is he going to find the space to get people off the streets?
Well, that is the huge question, which we don't yet have an answer to. What the Prime Minister has promised is £102 million more to try and end rough sleeping. That's on top of £340 million promised in July. But it is obviously an absolutely mammoth task. And people who are close up to this issue, people in homelessness policy planning, have said that the Prime Minister is being a bit naive about this. He tried to do something similar in Manchester, and what happened is the numbers did go down initially, and then they started to creep up again. And there are some fascinating stories of, for example, a paranoid schizophrenic who was on a lot of drugs, was given housing, group housing in Manchester, didn't want to live in it, would prefer to live back on the streets. Obviously, that's an unusual situation, but the idea of completely ending rough sleeping is something that is nigh on impossible. The question about COVID is a really, really important one. Prime Minister says if it was possible during COVID, then it's possible again now. As you say, completely different situation because the commercial hotels were empty. And of course, not only this time the commercial hotels aren't empty, but also we know that there are huge tensions in an area when a commercial hotel is filled with migrants. Hoteliers don't particularly like it because it stops, business coming into the area. It can strangle the local economy. And you could actually have exactly the same issue with homeless people. There may be sort of more sympathy in the general public, but there are predictions of unease among the public if hotels in their local area are filled with homeless people, and you could get the same sort of reaction as you get from migrants. So this is a really difficult issue for the Prime Minister. He sort of staked his reputation on it. This was something which he promised before he even entered number 10. I do find it quite interesting, the wording that he's using. He says that he wants to get homeless people off the streets for Christmas. For Christmas. That doesn't mean by Christmas. That means that over Christmas, he wants homeless people not to be on the streets. That might be doable, but then could we see exactly the same situation happening where the numbers start to creep up in the spring?
I wonder if he's created a hostage to fortune situation here.
And it's admirable, I think, that he has picked this up as an issue. It has been ignored for a long time, but the long-term solution is people in permanent housing. Then they're able to get jobs. Then they're able to reintegrate back in society. And it's not everybody wants that.
Not everybody wants that, and it involves a lot of planning changes.
Well, he'll be judged harshly if he doesn't do it.
He will. Well, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. We're back tomorrow, of course.
Yeah, and thank you for listening and watching us in such large numbers, because we're thrilled to say that you are, which is very nice. Up next, good next.
Of course, the money that's going to be spent on trying to deal with rough sleeping is the same amount, effectively, as will be used for one migrant camp in North Yorkshire. So are illegal immigrants being treated better than our own homeless?
Yeah, that's a big debate today. And also, on a similar vein, foreign nationals, a record number, are now on benefits, in particular universal credit, 1.3 million. Should we start thinking about the British taxpayer over people who have arrived in this country? A lot more to come on Good Afternoon Britain. Stick with us, with me, Emily Carver, and Mark White.
With the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office. A very different feel across the UK compared with summer so far. Some bright spells, yes, but also frequent heavy showers, and not just for northern parts of the UK. Some other areas across England and Wales where we desperately need rain have had a splash of rain overnight, not much, and there'll be further showers through the day today. So, yeah, with a cooler feel as well. It's a marked contrast compared with summer so far. But the most frequent showers always across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England, where there'll be some hail and thunder, and it will feel notably cool with a brisk breeze. Further south, low to mid-20s. In any sunny spells, there will be some fleeting showers. Now, these are going to be very hit and miss. Some places will mostly avoid them and stay dry with sunny spells. Other areas will get a brief shower or two. Not enough to help the current situation, but better than nothing. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, plastered with showers, those showers pushing south into northern parts of England. The far north of Scotland, fewer showers. They're not quite as lively here, with cooler air all in all for Shetland as well as Orkney. Now, the showers in the northwest do tend to trickle